Hey, Warpugs. So today we're finally getting back into the Halo list. I took a break from it for a little bit, but we're gonna dive back in. One of the most requested videos on the server right now is on Sergeant Avery. I will be getting to that soon. But today we have a request from Deceiver 2017, and he is requesting HiddenXperia's video on the AI that defeated an entire galaxy of Flood. Now, I mean, that's a lot of experience. This thing must be a god. It can solo raid anything. I'm just saying. But we're gonna jump into this. If I'm remembering, it's probably one of the it's probably one of the ones that's on the Halo ring. Something bias, I think. If I'm remembering correctly, that was the one. But I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. We will see if I am wrong. Let's go. The AI that defeated an entire galaxy of Flood. God, I know so little about this. Nice. I like that intro. I really like that intro. That intro's okay. I like it.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today, I want to tell the tale of one of the unsung heroes of the Halo universe. An AI responsible almost single-handedly.
I cannot get over, for the life of me, seeing this thing talk in a ooh-woo voice. That thing has crippled my sanity. It's just... I don't really know if I'm ever recovering from that. Under any circumstance, my soul has collapsed. It is what it is, guys.
For preventing the entire consumption of the galaxy by the Flood, and that won the most critical battle in history against a parasite while being outnumbered 436 to 1. This is the story of offensive bias.
Oh, I know it was something
In the
biased.
final years of the Forerunner Flood War, the fate of the galaxy was practically sealed. The Forerunners had suffered blow after blow for thousands of years, slowly being worn down in number, with each loss only making the Flood stronger. Potentially millions of planets had been consumed, and as such, the collective knowledge of the Flood was astronomical. Over time, whole sections of the galaxy fell to the Flood, creating extremely biohazardous zones known as burns, galactic regions infected in their entirety. However, the Forerunners had prepared for their return. After their first encounter with the Flood some 1,000 years prior, an extremely powerful Forerunner by the name of Faber had created mendicant bias to prepare for their eventual return. In creating Mendicant, a new hyper-intelligent class of AI was born, the Contender class. Being the first of this new class, Mendicant was without a doubt the most advanced intelligence in the entire history of the Forerunners. Contenders differ from regular AIs in that they're comprised of multiple AI minds that work in tandem with one another.
So like
As
a hive
such,
mind.
they can have multiple bodies and can multitask like nothing else. Because of Mendicant's hyper-intelligence, it was trusted with the entire Forerunner military, ordered to command fleets of ships and prepare the Halos and also other defenses across the galaxy for impending Flood assaults. It was also ordered to study the Flood to learn their weaknesses and to understand how best to exploit them. But it was this task that would pave the way to ruin. 50 years following its creation, Mendicant conducted a test firing of Omega Halo, which inadvertently freed an ancient captive from its prison. A dark being discovered by the ancient humans on the very edge of the galaxy. They called it the Timeless One, but the Forerunners called it the Primordial, an ancient twisted hybrid of the precursors.
That thing, it looks like Zinch. I'm just saying, you might want to take it easy on the burgers because he can't move around too well right now.
And a Gravemind. Now that it was free from its prison,
Wait, a what?
it was very quickly transported to installation. But the Forerunners called it the Primordial, an ancient twisted hybrid of the precursors and a Gravemind.
That's bad.
Now that it was free from its prison, it was very quickly transported to Installation 07 by the Forerunners, and Mendicant was ordered to interrogate it. And it was during this 43-year-long interrogation where the Foreigners would suffer their biggest loss of the entire war. The Primordial managed to convince mendicant bias that its creators were denying the next step of evolution, the Flood. Using its authority as the final precursor, it persuaded Mendicant to abandon its makers and join the Flood via use of the Logic Plague, causing it to go rampant and betray its former masters.
Lovely.
This was a cataclysmic turning point in the war. The entity with control of all the Foreigners' defenses, including the Halos, had defected to the Flood, taking with it all the abilities it was granted to defend an empire, but now harboring a deep hatred for its former allies. As you'd expect, this heavily catalyzed the Foreigners' demise. However,
This sounds like it went just swimmingly. This sounds like it just went absolutely swimmingly.
to push back against this loss, a new contender class AI was created to act as its replacement, Offensive Bias. At the time, Offensive was presumed to be one of, if not the only other contender class AI in existence.
Okay.
It was considered a direct replacement of Mendicant Bias that was created to not only protect the last remnants of the Foreigner Empire, but to directly counter its predecessor. As such, it was designed to be far more operationally lethal. It was ordered to command all of the remaining Foreigner defences, the job once held by Mendicant, and when Mendicant found out about Offensive, it looked down upon it in an almost sneering manner, declaring it an inferior metarch, a belief that it would ultimately regret. The final years of the war were nothing but Flood victory after Flood victory. Every major skirmish ended in a decisive victory for the Parasite, causing their numbers to exponentially grow, while the Foreigners continued to lose everything: troops, sentinels, and fleet after fleet of ships. As they lost in number,
I've had a Stellaris run like this. It was not pleasant.
they also lost in territory. Their once expansive control of the Milky Way, filled with thousands of crucial locations, had been withered down to merely 2. These final 2 uninfected locations would be the stages for the concluding battles of the war, with the first being the Greater Arc, a larger version of the Lesser Arc from Halo 3. The Battle of the
Okay.
Greater Arc was yet another resounding victory for the Flood. They came with a force of well over 1 million infected ships commanded by Mendicant Bias, and multiple grave mines and key mines, along with precursor star roads, these gigantic precursor megastructures that could be used to an absolutely devastating effect. To defend the Greater Arc, which was acting as the final refuge of the entire Foreigner civilian population, Offensive Bias had infinitely fewer ships, the Greater Arc's defenses, and Omega Halo. And that was it. The conflict went just about as you'd expect. The Flood very, very quickly overwhelmed all Foreigner defenses and used the Star Roads to literally shatter the Greater Arc into pieces. Offensive resorted to firing Omega Halo, which definitely put a dent in the Flood's forces, but definitely not a big enough dent. Ultimately, Offensive's defensive fleet was almost totally destroyed, with the remaining few ships trapped. However, in a display of its superior intellect, it managed to escape the trap and ensure that the Isodidact survived, and under his new orders, they all fell back to the final bastion of the Foreigner Empire, where they'd ensure this war came to an end, the Lesser Arc. As the Isodidact and few remaining Foreigners hurried to the Arc's control room to begin the activation of the Halos, Offensive Bias gathered all the remaining uninfected ships in existence and took them to the Maginot Line, a defensive perimeter of Foreigner installations built long ago to defend the core worlds of the Foreigners' empire
I love the fact that it's called the Maginot Line.
from invading ships. However, just like the Maginot Line that we know in the real world, it didn't work as intended.
Right.
With this final fleet, Offensive waited for Mendicant and its Flood army's final arrival. Its goal was not to win the battle, that was pretty much mathematically impossible,
Right.
but instead to hold off the Flood long enough for the Isodidact to activate the Halo array on the Ark. And when Mendicant's fleet showed up, it was clear that this was a battle he wasn't gonna win.
Right.
Offensive's roughly 11,000 strong fleet was matched by Mendicant's 4,802,019 ships. Offensive was outnumbered 436 to 1. The battle begun with
Well, if your only options to live are to charge the Carnifex with a wooden table leg, you charge the Carnifex.
Mendicant sending in roughly 1.8 million flood-controlled non-combat ships towards Offensive's fleet. It retaliated, but it had nowhere near enough weapons to stop them all, and ultimately some made it past its defenses and boarded the uninfected ships. However, Mendicant's choice to not send in any warships exposed its rage as an exploitable weakness to Offensive. After sending a total of 7 waves of infected non-lethal ships towards Offensive, it realized that Mendicant was simply getting too cocky, sending some of its ships elsewhere. To Mendicant, this seemed like it was gaining a tactical advantage over Offensive, but it had no idea that it was simply stalling to allow the halos to be activated. It had no idea that Offensive had no intentions of winning this battle, but merely holding Mendicant off long enough. Mendicant continued to blindly assault the defensive fleet, almost tunnel visioning on it, because, as far as it knew, destroying these ships meant that it would finally win the war.
Right.
Its blind rage and eagerness to punish its creators, along with its constant downplaying of offensive bias, caused it to get cocky. And then, suddenly, the halos activated, killing every single biological, flood and non-flood, on board both side ships. With Mendicant bias seemingly shocked, Offensive activated self-destruction in its ships that had been captured by the flood, destroying much of Mendicant's fleet, and it used dreadnoughts like battering rams, crushing what were once flood vessels. Eventually, after continuously outsmarting it, Offensive outnumbered Mendicant 6-1. Despite its attempt to flee, Mendicant was captured and delivered to the Ark, where it would stand trial for its crimes against the foreign empire. Ultimately, the Isodidact chose to keep it alive, given its extensive knowledge of the Flood that would prove useful to future civilizations should the parasite ever return. Mendicant was then locked into exile and entombed beneath a vast desert on the Ark, forced to only think about one thing: atonement. What happened to Offensive bias after its incredible victory and also the trial is honestly unknown. For all we know, it could have been decommissioned, or, just like Mendicant bias, it could still be out there somewhere. And that is the story of arguably the biggest unsung hero in the entire Halo universe. You know, if it weren't for Offensive bias, we would definitely all be speaking Gravemind now. So I hope you guys enjoyed.
We really wouldn't be speaking. I don't think we would have evolved.
Enjoyed this tale. If you did, then please don't forget to show your support down below with the likes and the comments, and of course, if you're new around here, then by subscribing if you want to see more content like this in the very near future. And so, I want to give a huge thank you to
guys. So, I knew the name on it was going to be Bias. I'm not sure if I actually knew the first name of it, but I'm pretty sure it was I'm pretty sure it was during the playthrough that I picked that up. I am most definitely wrong about the fact that, because I was convinced I had heard of it, but I must have heard of Mendicant, not Offensive. I'm not sure where I might have heard that from. It was probably talking to a couple of friends. But in any case, this is an interesting bit of knowledge, because I knew that the Forerunners lost to the Flood and they only won by activating all the Halo rings. But what I didn't know is how that was done. So it's kind of cool to get that now. Add a little bit into the rest of the repository that is Halo in my head. I'm happy with this. I knew more than I did yesterday. In any case, guys, that was HiddenXperia's video on Offensive Bias. If you guys like that, just leave a like and a comment down below. I'm going to be putting all of HiddenXperia's links in the description down below, and right next to my own, including Patreon, everything like that. I'm going to head out from here. Got a little bit of other stuff to do today. It's been raining, so I haven't had that much time to record. It is what it is, and I'm babysitting a cat. I don't know why. I'll catch you guys later. Just Offensive Bias. There's a name for you.